Welcome to Running Your Best Life, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of running and how it can help you unlock your full potential. Whether you're training for a first 5K, chasing that marathon PR, or simply looking to lead a healthier, more fulfilling life, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Victor Vizcaino, joined by my amazing co host, Adele. Together, we dive deep into spring stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you not only improve your running, but also elevate your mindset and well being. So, lace up those running shoes and let's get moving.
Let's get moving, y'all. And Victor has a special introduction for a very special lady we have today. Y'all pay close attention. She's got some great tips for us and some information about some incredible races. So stay tuned.
Yes, our guest today is someone who truly embodies the spirit of running and the joy of supporting others in reaching their goals. Please welcome Kristal Sager, the race director of the Tunnel Marathons, a series of fast and scenic races that start at Snoqualmie Pass and finish in North Bend, Washington. Kristal's journey into running began in 2004 when she discovered her passion for the sport after the birth of her youngest child. Starting with a half marathons, she soon found her true calling in trail running. Drawn to the connection and peace that time and nature brings, her career in the running industry kicked off in 2016 with Destination Trail, where she played a key role in iconic races like Bigfoot 200, Tahoe 200, and Moab 240. While she loved the adventure, she sought more time with family, which led to her tunnel marathons in 2022. Today, Kristal oversees three incredible races: the Light at the End of the Tunnel Marathon in June, the Tunnel Vision Marathon and Half Marathon in August, and the Tunnel Light Marathon in September. Known for their breathtaking scenery and gentle downhill grade, these races are perfect for both first time marathoners and those chasing Boston qualifying times. Kristal's passion lies in supporting runners for all levels and witnessing those unforgettable moments of achievement at their finish line. Adele and I are thrilled to have Kristal with us today to share her story insights into race directing and what makes the tunnel marathons so special. Kristal, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let me start by asking you, Kristal, can you tell us what first inspired you to start running back in 2004? Were there a specific moments that made you lace up those shoes for that first time?
You know, Activity has always been important in my life. And after having three children, and my youngest was a baby, I wanted to try running. And I did a little bit when I was in high school and whatnot. And um, I fell in love with it. I started with the half marathon distance and then marathons, and then I found trail running, and that was where I was meant to be. Yeah. And so, you graduate to the 50K and the 50 mile, and actually the 50 mile was my favorite distance. And
Is it
and we have a
really?
yeah, it's just, I think for me, having a family and working, it was I could manage that. I could train enough, and I didn't have, like the 100-mile distance, a lot more training time is involved and whatnot. So for me, that was, achievable, and where I just, yeah, the mountains, the trails are where I find peace and happiness. So
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, I'm going to let Victor ask you a question, but I want to tell you, I am a Southern Louisiana girl. I'm a New Orleans girl. Everything's flat, everything's humid. My overhill and trail running has been limited compared to you two. So I am really excited to hear a lot of the things that Victor wants to lead you into sharing with us. So, Victor, I'm going to let you take the lead today.
Yeah, let me ask you, the tunnel marathons are known for their fast course and stunning scenery. What do you think makes these races so popular, especially for runners aiming to qualify for Boston?
I think it is the gentle downhill grade. It's it's not common to see a Boston qualifier on a trail, but this trail is unique in the sense that it is fast. It's beautiful on top of it, so you get out there and the scenery, the mountains, the water. It's pretty. It's a pretty course. And I do think it's the gentle downhill grade. We have, I believe, about 40% of our runners qualify for Boston. It's a great first time marathon as well. um, yeah, it's a beautiful course.
That's awesome. I did a YouTube video on some of the downhill races, and I mentioned this tunnel marathon. And I received an email from a lady from Texas that qualified Boston, and she was thanking me for the video because that's what motivated her to fly to Washington, run the race, and qualified for the Boston Marathon. So I thought that was pretty cool. And
Very nice. And we have a lot of people from Texas come up
Yeah.
to run the race. Yeah, a lot of them. A lot of from Texas.
yeah, I would imagine that it's
Yeah.
probably a little bit more boring over there because everything's flat. So to
Yeah.
go to
Well,
nice mountain green.
exactly. And I think too the temperatures, for them in they come up and they're like, this is nothing. We feel it's hot, like, oh, it's 80 degrees, it's so hot, like in August, say. Um, but June and September are usually pretty mild temperatures, sometimes they peak. Sometimes September will peak out a little bit higher at the finish line. But the trail is nice too because it does have a mix of shade as well. So when it is sunny, you still have the shade in there too. You're not in the full sun. So for people coming from Texas, it's like this is perfect. So
Well, and
Yes.
I'll attest to that too, Victor, if you don't mind me interjecting a little bit right here is I've run so much in Texas, Houston, South Texas, Southeast Texas. I've run everywhere in Dallas, everywhere you can imagine. And it is the same climate as training in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. I've run numerous marathons in the southern states, right? When I've had an opportunity, Crystal, as you and Victor are saying, to go to the north, to run in the New England states, to run, I've been in California running, been in Seattle running. We train in such humid, hot weather that to come to 80 degrees where y'all are is like put on a jacket, gloves, and a hat, and we can go all day. So that I really do believe that's why you get a lot of those Texas slash Southern training runners because they can last, a double marathon in the same kind of humidity and weather that you're having, where it would take them that much time and energy to just go those few miles here. But that's when I qualified for some races too. I wasn't really qualifying for something like Boston, but just times for myself. The colder weather climates were really, really fun to achieve those goals and then come back and run in 200% humidity, 99.9% temperature plus, and it's fun. So I truly attest that that's why a lot of Southern runners, and I'm glad we're reaching out to a lot of them too. I'm a little bit congested, excuse my voice, but I think that's the key is where you're running. The climate is just impeccable for that speed and that downhill to achieve those goals. So
yeah,
go
I
for it.
agree.
Yes. So how many correct? I know it's got three different races, but it's the same course, isn't it? On all the three races plus the half marathons, it's on the same course.
Yep, it's the exact same course. We just offer it the three different times. And then the half marathon, they start halfway through. So we all finish at the same spot in North Bend.
Oh, that's
Okay.
awesome. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the key points I made from the last time is to make sure that if you're gonna park at the start line, that you have a permit.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you get it.
Well, we have three parking lots that are not in the permitted lot where the race actually starts. So at High X Snow Park is a permitted parking lot. Um so you can get that online. That parking lot fills up really fast. So I always suggest that to all the runners, use the three parking lots that are free for runners, and it makes it a lot simpler and it's just a quick little walk to the finish line. And you don't get in that congestion of trying to
Yeah.
get into that Hyatt parking
'Cause
lot. So,
what happened to me is I forgot my cell phone, so I took the bus back down to the school, and by that time it was too late to, or it was the last bus, so I had to drive back up, and I'm like, "What? I don't have a permit, but I'll take my
oh,
chances." But it
oh,
was also such a. I had a hard time getting. I didn't have families members or anything, so I had a hard time finding a ride. That's 26 miles back up.
so it's changed a little, Victor, since
Okay.
you ran it. You ran it in 2016, and I want to say it was 2021. No, it was 2022. We made the switch because parking in North Bend is very, very limited, and as the race has grown, along with some bus issues in the morning, we decided to secure parking up at the start. So all the runners now park up at the start of their
Oh,
race.
nice.
And then they get bussed at the finish and they get bussed back up. We had a couple of snafus with some buses and it was a little stressful for runners and for myself race morning when buses were arriving late and you got a race that's got to start on time and that type of thing. So this way it's made for a much smoother process. And then we use the same parking in North Bend for our spectators. Family and friends can park there, and then they can get on a bus and take it to the finish line and be there when their runners cross. So it's worked out a lot smoother.
Oh,
So
that's
I have a little question for Crystal on that line. Do you find that there are a lot of spectators that want to be at the top level, or are there places for them to watch their family and runners coming downhill, or should they wait mostly at the bottom?
Well, the tricky part with the course is it's very remote. So you can access some of the trailheads. However, by the time you access the trail and the parking and then make your way to the actual trail, a
Mhm.
lot of times you're going to end up missing your runner at the finish line just because, you might have a couple miles in to even get to the trail. So we always recommend that, you see your runner off at the start if you want, and then that you get parked and on the bus into the finish line so you can
Okay.
see him across the finish line, especially if you've got somebody who's running really fast.
Right.
You would definitely end up missing them at the
yeah, 'cause
finish.
you would have to walk, right, to get to them. It's not like you can drive to different spots to see them.
Not No, not really, just because of the remoteness, like a lot of times where you have to park, you might have to hike in 2 miles to get to the actual trail and then to the aid station from there. So
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think that's expected from trail races because trail races you don't get spots where you can see them person. You're usually in the woods and out the woods, and it's
yeah, a little
it's
limited.
pretty
Yeah.
tough for spectators. This one just happens to have a few open areas,
Hmm.
uh, as I recall, where you are out in the open. You can see all the way to the freeway. Then you go back into the woods a little bit.
Yep, yep, yep. You can. It's
So
a
I have a
beautiful,
question.
beautiful trail.
Yeah, I have a question that might follow up on that. What are your aid stations and support stations like along that downhill course, since it is more remote and rural? How do y'all process that?
So we have a wonderful course director, Kevin Myers,
Mhm.
who coordinates all of that. And there are 10 total aid stations. They're all approximately 2 to 2.5 miles apart. And they set those up and they all have, well, the first aid station is water only, but they all
Mhm.
have water and electrolytes, and then there's three different stations that also have gels and whatnot, some porta potties along the way. But yeah, there's 10. They're nicely spaced, and so
That's
some
good.
people choose to run with a handheld. Some people just use the aid station and the cups we have, and some people wear a hydration pack. It's just whatever is comfortable for each individual.
Well, and Victor will share with you. We talked about this the last couple of weeks, hoping that we would get you to come and talk about these particular races. And we've talked about being prepared, having the right equipment, using it in your training so that you know what to expect with a little bit extra weight on your shoulder or on your hips if you're carrying anything. But the key is that somebody who enters knows that every couple of miles there's going to be something to help them if they need it. I think that's impeccable planning, truly impeccable planning, because that 2 mile mark for somebody who might start feeling a little low, feeling a little dehydrated, 2 miles is a pretty good distance that you know you can make it there to get the help you need and the support you need and the refreshments and hydration that you need. That's great planning, great planning.
Great organization.
Yeah.
And that was going leads me to the next question about volunteers. I know you guys can always use volunteers. My triathlon club also is constantly recruiting people to volunteer at different races. And can you tell us just a little bit about what does it take to volunteer, and are there any perks for someone who decides to volunteer?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, volunteers are the heart of the race. I mean, they truly are what make the race so special and successful. I actually am the volunteer coordinator as well. And when I took that over, I decided to reach out to some local cross country teams, to some of the high schools. And so for the last few years, we've partnered with a few local high schools that have run some of our aid stations. And then in exchange, we make a donation to their program, just for, well, you know how all the budget cuts go, and a lot of the schools are struggling with that. And so this has allowed them to be able to participate in some of the things that they wouldn't necessarily be able to participate in just because of costs, or students can, participate in the program because they've got the funding to do so. So that's been pretty rewarding. We also work with Seattle Night United Runners. But for in general, for our aid stations and for our volunteers, finish line and whatnot, we always offer a gifted race entry to our runners who come out to help for the day. It's just
Great.
our way of giving back and a little incentive. I know that's not why a lot of people volunteer, but we also want to, give back as they give to us. And so um, there's they can email directly to volunteer at tunnelmarathon.com. They can reach out to our website, which is tunnelmarathon.com, and there's a link there to volunteer. And there's volunteer positions at the start, there's volunteer positions at the finish. But yeah, it's rewarding to work with all of them, because I know that that's how the race is put on, by everybody contributing, and to the safety of our runners and whatnot as well.
All right. I'll definitely bring it up to our triathlon club because they are looking for different races and just trying
Yeah.
to get the club members to do more volunteering and also offer them maybe an entry or some kind of something, or collaborating with a race director like yourself to see what else they can offer either to you guys or to the members.
Yeah, that's volunteering was actually how I got started. I was injured and I wanted to stay connected to the running community. And so I started volunteering a lot. And then that just led to working in the industry from there. But yeah, just giving back.
Yeah.
It feels good. If somebody has never volunteered, it's almost just as fun and rewarding to be on the volunteer side as it is to be on the running side, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Yes.
I agree.
I agree. I think Victor does too, because we've both done a lot of that over our history with running and other fitness things that we've both done too. I think it's the most rewarding part, because the investment that you make is mostly time and effort for
Mhm.
somebody who you know might be participating when like we couldn't. And just to see the joy in their face, and I know that was a comment that Victor had in your bio and also in your introduction, how much joy you actually receive, not only from your runners, but from what the volunteers actually take away from the time and effort that they've invested too, which is especially the kids, when the
Yeah.
younger kids like the track teams, the high school or college teams that do volunteer, when they see these adults who really put it out there training for these type of events, and they haven't experienced that kind of training yet, they're training it specifically in what they're doing,
Yeah.
I think they get so much encouragement and inspiration. And it's almost like they aspire to do that when they're at that point in their life, for the time to train and the time to enjoy that accomplishment. So
Yeah.
it really just kind of, it snowballs, the snowball effect, downhill snowball effect, right?
Yeah.
Let's use that
And
analogy.
it's such a different perspective because mine was actually, I did a lot of racing before I did the volunteer. And it's like, wow, you miss so much when all you're doing is racing, because especially if you're towards the front, there's so much stuff that happens and the other parts of the race that you miss. You get a whole different perspective because I've done it for both the marathons and also for the Ironman, and you get to see so many different people with different attitudes, and how towards the end the attitudes might change when people are tired, and and just a
Right.
different
Yeah.
face, see everything. It's nice to get the whole picture.
Yeah. I agree.
Victor, if you don't mind, can I backtrack a little bit to look a little bit more personal information on Kristal? Because I do have a question for you. You said
Mhm.
you were about 30 when you started running, and you actually started with these distances. And I want to give Victor some time to get back to a little bit more of the race. But I wanted to ask what your suggestion would be to some of your potential race participants starting to run this kind of distance, maybe young children. I've done it myself as well. But also, what would you suggest to them on how to get started in training for this particular type of race? If they're very, very low key type runners, maybe not distance yet, you have any suggestions to help people start training for something like this? I think we lost her. I think we lost Kristal.
Yeah, she might have gone. Sometimes it gets disconnected if they get a
Oh,
phone call or
okay.
something like that, or a message comes through.
Okay.
Yeah, that I was going to ask that as well. That's a good question. Um, what are some of the
Yeah.
key things that a beginner tips and
Right.
tips
Right.
for a beginner runner, especially for like something like a downhill for her. So hopefully she'll get the
Get back. Well, what impresses me is that she actually started with distance running rather than a 5K or a 10K. She actually started with those distances. So I know we're still recording, but I figured you're going to edit when,
yeah. Oh yeah, and I can pause it too.
yeah, when she comes.
Question was, what would I recommend to somebody who was just getting interested and started out in running? And, I think picking a simple training guide and starting, little, obviously you want to start little by little and add. What do they say? Don't increase distance by like 10% a week or something like that, to prevent injuries and whatnot. And that's kind of what I did. I just started out little by little when I was training for my first marathon. And I always remember thinking, why would anybody want to run that distance? Like that's silly, And I would never run a marathon. And then pretty soon you're, at the marathon. I would never run a, 50K or a 50 mile or whatever. And I think when you start running and you get in that groove and you feel good and whatnot, it just is easy to the snowball effect, So just finding a good, training program. You can find them online. You can get a book at the library, even, and just start start with that. You don't necessarily need a coach or whatnot. You just
Yeah.
and it depends on what your goal is too. If you want to take first, second, or third, you might want a coach. If you just want to, run to finish the distance, just go out and have fun.
They can go to my website too. I have a simple training plan that can download for free.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of them out there for sure.
Right.
So,
Well, and,
yeah.
and knowing that you did this when you had small children, and that's something Victor and I had really been discussing and suggesting to our viewers, that if you're really going to get started, start easy, lace up the shoes, make sure they're tied when you walk out the door, correct? That's a simple reminder. Lace them up, go outside, start for a walk, a little bit of a jog. Don't hurt yourself thinking you're going to go and run 10 miles the first time you go out. But we've
Yes.
really been encouraging our runners and our viewers to really start smart. And if they have questions, obviously you can backtrack on any of the coaching information we have, etc. Sign into any of the free calls, all of that. Really good stuff. My curiosity though, because I have no hills where I live, would be how would you suggest a seasoned runner to now take on the challenge of a downhill distance of a 13.1 and a 26.2? Any specific things that you could encourage someone to be looking for when they start training in that respect?
You know, and Victor, you can speak on this too. To me, when I am on the course, the tunnel marathon course,
Mhm.
I feel like I don't really notice the downhill.
Okay.
Did you? I mean, did you notice
Um,
the actual downhill? Because to me, it seems just kind of flat, you know? Like
it's
I,
gradual.
yeah, it's very, very gradual, right? Like it's
Uh,
gradual.
I guess depends on what you've done the last race, because
That's
and the fact that there's no uphills, it's difficult to see the contrast,
Yeah.
because when you are, sometimes I've been like that, it's like it looks flat, but I'm having a hard time. I don't know why I'm breathing so hard when you're doing uphills, and then all of a sudden you get a downhill. It's like, oh,
yeah,
I was
yeah,
going, it was gradual uphill, but my perception used to be just like I'm running out of energy. It's getting harder and harder, but I'm not realizing how gradual uphill I'm going. But
Mhm.
with that one, I knew it was a gradual downhill, so
hmm
I can tell because I was really focused on beating the time, and I think I was more in tune into that pace for because the me was pushing the pace. I was trying to break a
Okay.
3 hour marathon, so it was very that's pushing the limits of my pace per mile. And I
hmm
know I can only do that on a downhill. And even then, it was still hard. But
hmm
I think I can feel the difference because I know that there's no way if it wasn't, if it wasn't that great that I could reach those goals.
Goals,
Yeah.
yeah.
I still didn't get the actual goal, but you're at 1 mile at a time. It's like, oh, okay, I got that one, I got that mile, and then it flattens a little more. It's like, oh, that was harder to get, because you are running 6:45 minute miles,
Yeah.
and so when it gets to the flat, okay, I can barely do a 7 minute mile, for example. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's
So
easier.
I guess if somebody's training for something like that, they would want to be on terrain where they could, potentially be practicing that, Uh,
Yes. Yeah, practice like you're gonna race. It's the most important thing. We
Mhm.
yeah.
kind of discussed it that last week is doing squats, doing the bleachers where you're jumping down. And it's not that that one is not as steep as other ones that I've ran, but what
Yeah.
I did find out is downhill racing really takes a toll on your quads,
Mhm.
especially if there's that one, like you said, it has some areas where it's kind of flattens out. But
Yeah.
I've done like Mount Hood, I've done Big Bear,
hmm
and they have miles and miles of really downhill where your legs just take a beating, and it's hard to recover.
We do have a nice iced um, water tank at the
Oh,
line
see, awesome.
to soak those legs in.
Is it like a little swimming pool?
It's like a bigger tank, yeah, like
Oh,
a yeah. And people get in that and soak.
Yeah.
So
no.
Do you have a massage therapist and physical therapist at the end of the race too? I figured that.
we do have massage therapists. Yes, the
Yeah.
massage team joins us, and that's been wonderful. That
Good.
was an
Yeah.
addition, but yeah.
So I brought my
Ah.
2016 tunnel marathon, and I've been wanting to add these to the podcast, like just asking about medals, because some people say that I don't care about the medal, other people's are all about the medal. And I was going to ask you and maybe even Adele, what do you guys think about medals, and how much of the planning goes into a race medal?
Well, I'll let Crystal go first because she's been directing for such a long time that she knows exactly what works and what doesn't. So, Crystal, I'll defer to you. You go ahead.
Well, I think you're right. I think there are some people that they don't really care about a medal, and it's and same with the t-shirt. You know, if you get a race t-shirt with your entry, some people are like, "Oh, I don't want the race shirt or whatever." But I think, you know, personally, I think the medal is it's a token of your accomplishment. You know,
Mhm.
and um, we will always give a medal because that's just something that we think is important when you cross that finish line to have that placed on around your neck is just something that we value and I think the medals are beautiful myself.
Yeah.
um, and it's just like I said, it's just a token for you. You know, 20 years from now you can look back on that, or your kids will look back on that and be like, wow, you know, my mom or my dad or my grandma or my grandpa, they were running these races. I mean, it's just something that um we value with our race entry, and along with a race t-shirt too. Like,
Yeah.
and we have moved from a tech shirt to a more of a brushed cotton, which is more of an everyday type wearing
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
shirt. So
Y'all do the long sleeve or short sleeve shirts?
short sleeve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wearing, I put this on purpose. Today was a swim day. So I swam early this morning and I said, oh, what? I have to wear a race shirt. Well, this is the Louisiana half marathon, Louisiana Marathon weekend, which is always in January. And obviously, Crystal, it's very flat. It's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is where Louisiana State University is, my alma mater, just so you know. But they do a full type of weekend, like the kids mile, a 5K, a quarter marathon, a half, and a marathon that go off on Sunday. The other ones go off on Saturday. Excuse me. And it's a 14-year race. Next January will be the 15th year, and I've always run, the shorter race on Saturday and the half on Sunday. I was well past my marathon years when they started. But the beauty of that is that I treat my t-shirts from races like my dress shirts, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know about Victor, but if I get a long sleeve shirt, I actually bought this one because it had the hood. This was one of the new little purchase models you could get, and then I had the short sleeve t-shirts from the races. I treat them like dress shirts. I put them with my dress jeans to go out to dinner, put them with my cute little tights and a cute jacket. And the
Yeah.
medals, I went through my boxes and I've accumulated so many of my years. And I remember every race to get those medals, right, Victor? You
Yeah.
remember 2016 running the tunnel. Some of them were great, some of them were not. My first marathon medal was January 17th, 1998, my New Orleans marathon and very first one. And I cried 3 miles in because of there was a full story to that, cancer survivor and all the other stuff. And so that was huge for me. And
Yeah.
and now I have 45 Crescent City Classic medals. They've run the race for 48 years. I've run 45 of them. The only reason I missed the first three, Victor, I'll tell you, is because I was finishing my master's at Oklahoma State. And the beauty of that is every one of those is significant because, as you just mentioned, when my grandchildren see those medals, my kids see those medals, and they've been at all, they know that that's something really special. And whether they collect dust or they're on a rack or in a box, it's something that makes a memory for me as well as the people that I'm with and for those I down the road. That's how Victor and I connected actually at a conference a couple of years ago. I went out to run the Pacific Coast Highway, which in California, and I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's my 65th birthday. He says, well, I'll come run with you. And that's how we connected 2.5 years ago. But to know his history and these other experiences is truly amazing. So to see that medal that he just held up means a lot to me because it was your first downhill, correct? Was that your
Yes,
first?
I think
Yeah,
so. I think it was. Yeah, the first downhill marathon
yeah.
that
It's
I did it.
amazing.
I couldn't remember the exact year that I've done it, but that's what I noticed that how important they are because as I'm digging through my medals, I'm finding other ones and they bring you memories of like, oh wow, that's the same year. For example, my dad was in the hospital and I forgot that. And so it does bring those memory. And this leads to my next question to you, Crystal. What is your favorite
Yeah,
medal that you've received? And is there a medal you're looking forward to earning?
good question.
Wow. Hmm. Well, I would actually probably say it would be my first marathon, the Bellingham Bay Marathon.
Okay.
Just it was my first, and it took a lot to get there. Um, and in terms of one that I would like to run, a race I'd like to run. Um, I'm not really sure. To be honest, I would love to run one of the tunnel marathons to
Really?
be honest. And maybe one day I'll get to do that when somebody else can stand in my spot or whatnot. I might get to do that. I've gotten to do the course because we always go out the day after the race and do a double sweep. We sweep
Mhm.
the course um, the day of, behind the last runner and pick up all the garbage and stuff. But then the course director and I go out the day after and do the course and make sure every little tab from those gels, the tops, are
Yeah.
picked and that it's cleaner than we found it. So,
Yeah,
I've gotten to experience the course, but it'd be fun to actually race it.
yeah. Have you
Yes.
done any downhills at all that are directed by someone else?
I did the Biz Johnson marathon in California, and that was similar. It was on I think it was an old railroad grade as well, and it was a slight downhill. It was a little more gravelly than I expected, but it was also beautiful. It was a beautiful course.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
All part of the journey, the running, the medals. When I think about the medals, like you were talking about, it brings back memories, and it's just part of our journey,
Yeah.
through life and what we do and whatnot. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I also was, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up the medals and start asking about people and just their opinion on the medals and what their favorite, and it's the connection, because the same thing as Adele was talking about, when you're wearing a shirt somewhere else and it's like, oh my gosh, you ran that, I ran that too. And you automatically connect with other people. Or a hat, when you're
right.
wearing a certain hat, is like, it brings up conversation because maybe they done a similar race or they're looking forward to seeing it. But it's a good way to start a conversation and connecting with other athletes.
Yeah,
yeah,
it
So
is. Well, I have a
with the
question.
medals, that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I have a question for Crystal before we try to get to conclusion. And this is a rhetorical question. It doesn't require an answer. But please come to run down south in New Orleans. I'm trying to convince Victor at some point, somewhere in my area where I can host you and your family, perhaps Victor and whoever he wants to bring with him. We could have kind of a meet and greet, go for a run in one of our beautiful parks, but it's flat. So
great.
that's a rhetorical question
Perfect.
and an invitation. And I'm going to turn it
Thank
back over to Victor.
you.
Awesome. Well, wow, what an inspiring conversation, Crystal. This was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and giving us behind the scenes a look at the tunnel marathons.
Yeah,
Your passion for supporting runners and creating
Mhm.
memorable race experiences truly, truly shines through.
yeah. Thank you for having me. It was nice chatting. And hopefully we see some of you um, at our races June, August, or September. June's actually sold out, but we do have space in our August and September races. So, and if
Okay.
not, come out and volunteer.
What
Yeah,
is
and
the
I,
number? When
yeah.
should they start to sign up for the other two? Right now.
Yeah, last year September sold out, but it didn't sell out until a couple months before the event, and then August was between the two races. We had about 1,000 runners, so the half
Mhm.
marathon sold out pretty quickly,
Okay.
but the marathon still had, I don't know, maybe 150 spots left.
Okay.
So but they have gained some popularity for sure in the last few years. So
And what is your maximum? What do you top out at for that course for
a
the
thousand, a thousand,
marathon? A
1,000.
thousand.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that's controllable, obviously. for that
Yeah.
number. Yeah.
Yep, and we don't close that trail to other trail users during the race, and so that's another um part of why we keep it capped at that
Okay.
number, just so others can still enjoy the
Yeah.
um trail and whatnot. It's a very popular trail.
That's really
Yes.
good to know. One of the things, and I know Victor may have one or two more questions, but just real quick, we had suggested to our viewers that if they're planning to run, obviously prepare, do certain things to train a certain way to get that impact that's going to be a little bit more gradually downhill. Would you have any suggestions on equipment, shoes, or anything like that that you could suggest to any of our viewers that might consider registering for that August or September race?
I get the question a lot on whether they should wear a trail shoe or a road shoe. And I my answer usually is run what you are comfortable in, because that trail you could run in either. You could wear your
Okay.
road shoe or you could wear a trail shoe. And so I'm don't try anything new on race day, so I always just suggest, wear what you're most comfortable in.
Okay.
And then and people will ask about, carrying a handheld, and I think that's a personal preference too. If there's an aid station every few miles and you're comfortable with that, then go that route. But if you're comfortable with a handheld or a hydration pack, um, we have the three aid stations that have the stinger gels.
Mhm.
But if you are using a different type of gel, either prepare in advance in your training with stinger, and same with the hydration we use is tailwind. So I always tell people, practice with that in your training,
Mhm.
or come prepared with your gels
Right.
in a belt or whatnot. So yeah, I just personal preference really when it comes to certain things, in my opinion.
I like that.
Awesome.
I
Cool.
like that.
Yeah, I think that's all I have. And I'm just going to encourage the viewers to comment. And also, if they have a medal they want to put a picture of their favorite medal of the tunnel marathons, or if they want to just comment what their opinion on the race, I would love to have any comments on the tunnel marathons would be great.
And
Yeah.
that would be awesome. Victor, you're going to go ahead and put the links to contact Crystal and those races with our program as well.
Yes, yes, the website to register and also to volunteer. She mentioned that. We'll put them on the show notes as well.
Perfect.
Perfect.
All
Perfect.
right, Crystal, I loved meeting you and to hear your story. I'd love to hear even more. So if we stay connected, I would love to hear some results. I think the June is your first event. So perhaps we can connect again after that, see how everything went. And if you had any other suggestions, because those other two races will probably be closing close to their maximum of registration and entries. So good luck. I
Yeah.
can't wait to hear more about it after. I want to see the medal from this year, Victor. How about you? Maybe
Yes,
Chris can show
definitely.
one to us.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Usually they don't like to spoil it until you actually cross the finish line. But sometimes they do. Some races I've seen where they show you, oh, this is the beautiful medal, and they're
Yeah.
getting more elaborate. I have medals that are huge, and I
Okay.
have some that are tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All kinds of different ones out there now. I've seen some really cool wood ones too that I
Yes.
Yes, I have too. Depends on the
And
yeah.
location a lot of times. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
series of ones. Like if you get like three, if you ran
Yeah.
all three, they would connect all three, and all these puzzle ones that
Yeah.
connect together. So yeah,
Yeah.
That would be
definitely.
awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to end the recording, guys, and bye
You.
to the viewers.
It was nice to meet you.
Nice
Oh,
meeting
Crystal, it was a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Stay on just a second.